We are a podcast for product marketers and B2B SaaS who feel misunderstood of what they do.
From someone who truly gets what you do and
basically help you feel less like a misfit, being unignorable in your role.
Hey everyone, welcome to another illustrious episode of We're Not Marketers. This is Zach, the sales water lad on the mic. Before we kick it off and roll out the red carpet for our amazing next guest, let's pass the mic to our fellow co-host. I'm going to kick it off with Gab right here.
Thank you, Zach. Gab Bugeaud, Sales Deck Associate. I still do Sales Deck, even when I tell the guy that I don't want to do them. I still do. And I'll pass it out to the other co-host of the bunch, Eric.
Yeah, what's up? Eric Holland, Franken manager, used to be the Franken marketer, and now Zach. No one really cares about us three anyways. They come for our guests. So please introduce our wonderful guest host today.
Eric, you are right. Despite our promotions here, it fails in comparison to our next guest right here. She is the head founder and consultant of Virdical. Before she hopped onto the mic, we had to look away from the sky because she's been shattering ceilings, and we do not want to get that debris in our eye. Her business is based out of Washington, DC, but before she was leading product marketing consultancy, she was in the marketing function. She was part of demand gen. So we don't know. Is this a prequel of what the answer she will give to our next question, our product marketers? Who knows? But she's going to give us the DL of what it takes to managing a product marketing consultancy. What is her viewpoint on the space today? And what are some hot takeaways that you all can take away from this conversation that if you might want to do the same? But with that in mind, let's introduce our amazing guest on the mic, Alex Virden. Alex, what is cracking?
Thanks for having me. That was a hell of an intro. I don't think any podcast has ever made me blush like that, so I appreciate that.
But we're not marketers, so what we say is the truth. But we don't want to discredit what you might say in your next answer. So disregard what I said right there. I'm going to pass it over to Gab, and Gab, you know what to do.
Yeah, now you understand why we're letting Zach do the intro this season, because he's been killing it. Everyone feels blessed when they get their intro compared to me and Eric doing it. But Alex, I feel like the listeners right now are like, oh, okay, please ask that question. We need to know, are product marketers actually marketers? Why or why not?
You know, I feel like my answer was totally different when I was in the product marketing function full time, because I probably would have said, yes, we're marketers, but being on the outside and working with different teams and being like a consultant that's coming in, I'm coming into projects that are like product marketing by name, but working with executives, working with board members, working with sales, CS, products. So I like to think of it as you're almost a mini CEO. You're somewhere between all the different functions, and you're not really grounded in traditional marketing like brand demand. You're at the intersection of product knowledge and customer insights, and then you're having these strategic meetings while also building out product launches and stuff. I think my answer before would have been, yeah, we're definitely marketers. Don't think we're not. But now it's no. I think we're somewhere in the gray space. I don't know if we need a function for it, but I think we at least need to treat it as it's not a total marketing pure kind of discipline. So it's not it depends. I think we're not marketers.
I love this. Yes! Not just because of the answer, but the way you frame your answer, right? Mm-hmm. When I was in it in-house internally, I thought we were marketers, but now with the project you're getting in, you feel like you're not. I very much like that take two on as a mini CEO, because it's something we heard as well before. Mm-hmm. Fantastic start. We're already happy that you think like us, but it's getting very great so far.
Yeah, we have to understand like all the dynamics of the market plus building stuff. It's no other marketers are doing that. So yeah, anyway.
I really wish you prefaced this conversation telling us to bring umbrellas before this call, because the debris that's just falling on our heads after every take here, Alex. Clarifying question for you. What was the specific experience that led to this shift? Because people are hearing this right now for the first time and they're like, oh my gosh, Alex, why would you say such a thing? I'm curious, what was that experience that got you to what you were saying today?
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm gonna catch some heat. I saw some LinkedIn commentary recently on this topic that was very pro we're marketers squarely. But when you're a consultant and you're coming in to do things like pricing, packaging, or messaging realignment or strategy across different teams, you're leveled up from just the marketing department. And it's really who product marketers should be interacting with, like the types of things that they should be doing that are both strategy and tactical. And when you think about the way that a really great product marketer can interact across the go-to-market team, they shouldn't be confounded to marketing in the functional term. Yeah, they're marketers in the sense that they're internal marketing, they're external marketing, but they're also like these, like I said, like mini CEOs that have to worry about how a strategy that they might lay out when it comes to pricing, packaging, or competitive intelligence, or narrative shifts, or product roadmap planning and organizing that with product, how that's all going to play out at a higher level than maybe what marketers focus on, which is really, when I was in demand gen, it was the funnel. It was, how are we driving to these KPIs that are reset at the end of each quarter? Product marketers are looking in some ways ahead, in some ways the same mindset that maybe your board or maybe your founder or your executive team is looking, and we're just digging in deeper on the tactical side too. So it really wasn't until I started my own consulting firm that I was like, wow, we're doing so much and we're interfacing with so many different people, as we should. But why? I guess then it led to the question, why internally do we ground ourselves in where we are in the function, when externally it's like, hey, we need you to come in and directly liaise with all these people because we know the value of product marketing. So it was just that external perspective that kind of rerouted my brain to where and what product marketing is.
So basically, the takeaway is, if you don't agree with us, please just go full time, and you'll see we're right.
Yeah, exactly.
Question: do you feel like being like having that title consultant, do you think it affords you that type of relationship, or are you coming at it with a different perspective yourself?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think a lot of my engagements are through word of mouth or my network. So people already, for better or worse, know my brand, know what I'm good at. But they also a lot of projects come in because they need that third party or that outside viewpoint to come in and maybe reiterate a point or dig deeper into a perspective or challenge assumptions. And I do think having that title as consultant or fractional product marketer gives you the space to have opinions and not play into the internal politics that are a lot of times prevalent in startups or just different organizations. It gives you a way to be a sounding board in a way that when I was internal, it was very much like worrying about the politics and the delicate nature of how to say something or how to back channel something, where I don't have to do that. So I think people enjoy bringing consultants and other fractional folks in to be that person that can advocate and build out a strategy in a way that's not confounded by the full-time kind of politics at different organizations.
That's well said. It's like it's not that you don't have skin in the game, but you're not rooting for a specific department. You know that when people are working together to the highest efficiency, this is when you're able to achieve those results. That basically your goal is to deliver results. And if sales is unable to work with product and with marketing together, you won't be able to push those desired outcomes, and everything will just fall down like a house of cards. It's not a game of, okay, who is the winner? It's, okay, how can we win together to make sure we actually push the narrative and wins?
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And I think that a lot of times when you're moving fast, especially if you're seed, series A, series B, you're trying to get to that next point of growth. A lot of times that gets maybe missed or just drowned out in the stress of trying to constantly achieve and get to that next KPI. And yeah, being a consensus builder from that external perspective has really helped a lot of my clients based on the feedback that I hear.
What are the
shameless
questions?
plug. Zach, hold on real quick. Shameless plug for you, Alex. Let's say we got a product marketer who's in-house listening. Can they hire you to come be that voice of reason?
Oh, anytime. I am the oldest daughter, so I love giving a hot take whenever need be. So yes, I am always available for hire for that purpose.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
This is going to tie into what Eric has just mentioned here earlier. What are the questions that clients are asking themselves internally or might have bubbled up in your first conversation where it's like they might need that sounding board? Context being is that I don't know what, like, working internally, I don't know when my business is chaotic. Like, what are the questions that might be coming up, and what might be the symptoms of that? I was like, okay, this is time to bring Alex in.
Yeah, I like to treat a lot of the first calls that I have as really getting to know the like emotional side of what the call is going to be about or what's going on. A lot of times I meet with CMOs and VPs of marketing. Occasionally I'll meet with a product marketer, but a lot of times because marketing functions have just been shrinking, they either haven't had a product marketer in place for a while or have been having people do these like stretch in between roles. And so what I hear when it's like time to bring a product marketing consultant in is the lack of like continuity between the go to market team, silos, frustration between what's going out on the sales side, what marketing's producing, messaging. A huge thing that is always coming onto my plate is messaging, positioning, and narrative work with teams just frankly being smaller. That's getting lost in the mix of how do we constantly iterate on it. And then on the product side, like the just disconnect between what product's building, what customers are saying, what CS and sales are hearing, and then how marketing is pulling all of that together to make this very dysfunctional story. So a lot of times it's like, what's keeping a VP of marketing up at night? Frustration that their team's drowning in work, frustration that they're not doing all the things that need to be done, that they're missing their number, and that they don't have a cohesive story and that they can't communicate to the different go-to-market teams because everything is disorganized internally. So a lot of the projects that I like come in on are both like, here, let me be a sounding board for you. And then let's make a game plan together of how we can attack the go-to-market team versus just really narrowing in on like maybe what would be a marketing project, if you will.
I have a quick follow-up question to that piece right here. Can you give us a specific example? What might a cohesive story sound like? Is it like me throwing buzzwords on my homepage and just
Hell yeah.
that? Yeah, I'm like, look, give us the AI power solution here, Alec. This is what we need in our lives.
Yeah, I've been working with a client in fitness tech for the last months. And when I first came in, what the client was looking for, it's a VP of marketing, was a story. Like, how do we rally behind a story? How do we tie our products together, our modalities, like all the different ways fitness, like boutique fitness is structured? And so we started there. But then as we were meeting with product and sales and CS, we started to realize there's all of this opportunity to bring people together because there's no launch plan. There's no in-house product marketer. And so many different things are getting left on the table. People are running at different speeds. There's promises to prospects and customers that aren't being fulfilled. And so as that project kept continuing and we kept working together, it was taking the messaging, then making it in a way that was able to be enabled by other teams and absorbed by other teams, then taking that and saying, let's build out this playbook for the go-to-market team to really give piece by piece instruction, insight on who is doing what when, where the handoffs are, and how we can build this cohesion, still aligned under the same messaging, still aligned under the same product roadmap, but we're giving everybody like the same book to read out of and the same strategy. So that's just like one example of a project that I think is really when it starts in marketing, but then you can do so much more as a go-to-market team and help dissipate some of that emotional side of this is keeping me up at night. We're not talking to each other. Everybody's running fast, but not in the same direction. When you can start to organize and continue to work with clients, that's where is so much success for them and then for you as a consultant.
Having a micro offer or you're able to come in with that repeatable success. Either it's messaging and then you identify that problem, that signal, you can play towards it, but then it's always going back to being a relationship of trust, right? If I'm using that micro offer, I'm able to bring it to like completion, to success, then it's a no-brainer to keep working with you on marketing initiatives or other product marketing initiatives and just getting in that situation, because the trust has already been kind of created together. It's not just I'll pitch you something and then you're hoping for the best without necessarily engaging with that person.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no,
so
it's definitely it's a two-way street. Like I've worked with teams that we've worked together for months, or we did a project, went dormant for a little, and then we worked again. And then on the flip side, some teams you get done a project and you're both like, that was great, but our needs are over here, or culture fit wise, we're not vibing. But that trust thing is really where you find a lot of magic and success that takes you beyond. Of course, you're a competent product marketer that can bring a lot to the table, that can do projects really well, but getting in a vibe with the team and really helping them and being able to see the initiatives actually like work out and build into something more than what the initial engagement is has been really cool to see.
and yeah, like speaking about that, when we spoke at Drive in back in September, I think you started your consultancy not long after that, like a few months before, maybe, I believe. Is there some learnings or mistakes that you would like to say to like product marketers right now that are like have been laid off or have been thinking about going into that full-time route as well?
Yeah, I think there's a couple mistakes that I've made that I try to warn people of. I think first and foremost, you have to treat your consulting business like a business. And for a while, I was doing my work for Virdical off the side of my desk and not tracking things or not invoicing on time, like just immature stuff. So just get a checklist, make sure your house is in order when it comes to your own business, because that will just wreak havoc in different times when you pick up a lot of work or when you don't and you're a little more on the emptier side. That's first and foremost. Two, don't chase money and don't try to play the game of like hourly rates and all of that kind of stuff. Like really figure out what you're good at, what you like doing, what you're passionate about, whether that's a project, the industry, the company size. And don't be afraid to say no to things that aren't a fit. I think initially I was saying yes to everything and I would just be so stressed out when I realized like this client is not for me. I am not for this client, and I can't wait for this engagement to be done. And then finally, what works in house doesn't often work with consulting, just because every project's maybe slightly different, or you need to templatize better, or you need to think, hey, this is a 3-month gig, and I'm not going to have the luxury of all these quarters, all this time to get stuff done. So retrain your brain to think more in terms of templates and sprints, in different ways of working that make it easier for the client and you to see success. So I think I messed up a lot on those 3 fronts in my first couple months, maybe even like my first full year of consulting. It was a lot of trial and error for me. I'm like, it's cool to make mistakes. You just can't keep living in the mistake. You got to pivot. You got to make a plan, a checklist, whatever, to do your best work.
Yeah, you get to
Tell
learn
us,
from them up to a point.
yeah. Tell us more about that hourly rate piece, because I feel like that is a common misconception for many of us that are starting out. That it seems common knowledge, but you're telling us don't do that. Tell us more about that.
I honestly, I took on projects where it was like, okay, what's your hourly rate? So then it was me trying to guess foolishly, like, what can this company afford? Or like, what is gonna make somebody say yes to me? And it's way less about that and more about what competencies am I bringing? How can I structure this like project so we both win in the end? And so I've completely done away with the hourly work. Don't do it. I think you get into a lot of trouble and a lot of guesswork. I had a client, not this summer, but last, get angry about the hourly stuff because the CEO, the founder, wanted to continually meet. And those are billable hours. Like, we're not doing charity work, meeting with founders or whomever. That's billable time. And he ended up putting, I think it was like 15 to 20 hours of billable meeting hours, and then wanted to claw it back. And that doesn't work for anybody. Set a retainer that makes sense. Let's set a contract. Let's set how much this is going to cost, what you're going to get, the scope, and really iron everything out. So it is completely like black and white. There, I don't leave a lot of room for interpretation just because we can always add on, but I want to make sure that we deliver everything that we've connected upon and signed, sealed, delivered. So we don't run into bad blood or weird hourly, like micromanaging checking when it comes to doing the billable hours versus more of a structured project or retainer approach.
And I know, if memory serves me correct, you were still figuring out like what exactly were the things that you wanted to offer. Where are you at in that process, and how's it been since Drive figuring out what is the offers that you'll provide?
Yeah, I really love, and there's a ton of work for messaging, narrative, and positioning work. I love doing that. I think that leads, frankly, if you're a product marketing consultant, that leads to a ton of other areas that you can work with and re-engage that client on, because there is so many ways to take that once the piece is finally delivered. And I love doing things that like reach across the go-to-market strategy and the go-to-market team. So some pricing, packaging stuff I've really enjoyed. And then at a higher level, just coming in and being like a sounding voice advisor or helping to manage a product marketing team or a growing product marketing team has been really great in building out that foundational level. That's something that I really love to do in-house. And when I was a solo or founding product marketer, I loved just setting the strategy, the tone, the pace, the cadence. And then in terms of just like how I'm structuring that kind of stuff, still figuring out what makes sense. But like the 3-month retainer for me and revisiting that with clients has been helpful to keep the anxiety at bay when it comes to deliverables and all of that kind of stuff and payment schedules. And it's helped me stay organized. And then it just makes it a lot easier for the client to know where they stand with me and what's going to be delivered when.
I have a question for you. You mentioned 15 hours with a founder about the product marketing.
Yeah.
In-house marketers, product marketers, whatever you all are calling yourselves these days. The idea of getting 15 hours with a CEO, that's unheard of. So I'm curious, just maybe at that specific conversation, Alex, or just from other engagements you're looking at, what are these unknown questions that these founders are asking you about a product marketing? And has that influenced your way of, like, when you mentioned templatizing, has that influenced what you, like, how you templatize your processes today?
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to sound, I don't know how this is going to sound when I say it, but people hear, oh, conversations with founders and like hearts in their eyes. Sometimes they're literally just talking at you about a slide deck, and like your time is valuable too. So I think that engagement actually taught me how to make sure meetings were valuable, make sure like our time was being well spent, especially if it got to the point where it was just somebody talking at me and we weren't leaving the conversation with anything more than I want this word instead of that word, or let me tell you about a story, yada, yada. Yeah, I would say when you're a consultant, you need to like respect your own time too, but that experience taught me to structure meetings a bit differently in order to get more sound insight or perspective sharing from founders and other executives that wasn't a waste of time or something that maybe could have been done in a different medium.
Founders asking you about slide decks? No,
Yeah.
Alex, no, that can't be true.
Here's the problem is when sometimes you come in as a consultant, you're also just like the armchair, the person who's getting intake, and depending on what stage you are, founders are extremely close to some of the marketing materials and want to have an opinion and want to see their perspective carried through. So maybe that's another learning, is just figuring out how to work with those leaders, especially when you're doing something that is already going to get a lot of attention and eyes. Yeah, it was an interesting engagement, to say the least.
I got a follow-up question to that. Tell us more about how you structure your meetings now after that experience, because I think for some of us on listening in, if a CEO put 30 minutes on my calendar, do I let him or her dictate the conversation? Or what is the clear agenda that I should be building to make sure that, like you said, it's a productive conversation?
Yeah. I think this is my kind of philosophy on product marketing and product marketers in general is like you need to maintain control of the conversation and the engagements, the initiatives, everything that you're working on because it's easy to get a lot of opinions from all these different sides. You being like the centralized role needs to hold the reins as closely as you can when it comes to what inputs do I need, what inputs are valuable, how do I let people know that I'm listening, I'm engaging. And so from that perspective, when I meet with CEOs or VPs of marketing, I'm coming with an agenda, I'm coming with clear questions that I need to ask. I'm leaving room and space. I'm holding space for whatever they might be coming to the table with that maybe doesn't necessarily have to do with the meeting, but they feel like I should know or need to hear. But definitely like my position as a product marketer is I'm trying to maintain some sort of control, some sort of perspective so we don't lose sight of what we're trying to get to, what we're trying to finish, what we're trying to update, what we're trying to reset on and keep the conversation driving forward. So I guess it's more of a shift in mentality than total meeting structure. I try to just keep it as structured as possible in the meeting, but leave space for anything that could come up that I might need. Yeah, I think product marketers need to maintain control at all points.
That as I've dabbled in some little consulting is it's so hard to like you come in with that agenda loose and there's no chance that you're getting out of there either on time or on time with the information you need.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's super. I just love that.
Yeah. And the worst is when you let it, when the horses have left the stable and then everybody in that meeting is glazed over, pissed off. When I was at Metadata, I had that happen where a meeting just went completely out of control. And everybody knew it was a bad meeting. The VP of sales calls our head of marketing calls me and it's just like, yeah, man, people internally talk and then product marketing loses their strategic position and then you're back to making one pagers and slide decks in the basement. Yeah, you got to keep the control, I think.
Yeah, you have to always, yeah.
One pagers in the basement.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a meme waiting to happen.
Yeah, definitely. We just got inspired. But yeah, I love the way you put it. And when you're coming with that angle of a structure agenda, you're ultimately the one that is bringing that authority, right? You're essentially the one that, you're paying me for a retainer or whatever the pricing model is, but it's a game of input output. I'm here to get that from you, and then I'll work on this. But when you bring other stuff that isn't necessarily relevant, okay, it's fine. If you book my calendar for that, and it doesn't impact the scope and the process of what we're trying to do, this is fluff, and this is not positive for both of our schedule. And it's also, I feel like you're always coming with that position of, whether you're in-house or someone who's a full-time consultant, your goal is to create very fast and impactful feedback loops. And if you don't control the narrative or the agenda, chances are that everyone can talk about anything. And then we just end up having wasted 30, 45, or even an hour of our time.
Yeah. On that point, I often say to product marketers, if you can't get like your house in order and you can't start to make relationships in your first 15, 30 days as a product marketer in-house, like you're going to miss out on being effective in your role because that's so important to everything that product marketing does, frankly.
Alex, and so to let me know if I'm on the same page with you. I might be wrong. I'm not the one shouting. It's like almost like this is internal affirmation. You might be the CEO, but I'm the CEO of my business. Like knowing, I'm like not even kidding. I have my affirmation journal. I write it every day, especially before meetings. So that's what I took away from that. You might know your business, but I know my expertise. And this is what I'm getting out of it. And the second one, it sounds like you're hitting at, is having some type of hypothesis of what might be happening, what might be informing the business, because that seems like that's helping to guide that conversation and help inform that point of view. And I'm on the same page with you.
Yeah, especially that last point, because I haven't been hired for engagements by a founder or CEO. It's been a VP of marketing, it's been a product marketer, and they have their own reasons for hiring me. But then when I come in and I'm doing my initial assessment of things, or I'm talking to other folks, I'm forming all of these questions to come in and be like laser focused and attack things from a way that maybe because you're internal, you're hearing all of these opinions, you're in the thoughts and feels land, and you're not thinking, oh, wait, what is this? How is this going to impact our business? Or how is this going to come together in a way that's successful for the larger go-to-market team? And so bringing the hypotheses to groups and just maintaining that curiosity is so crucial to be effective. Whether you're in-house or a consultant or a fractional person, the thoughts, opinions, the thoughts and feelings, the emotional side of like why people get upset in business, it can cloud so much. And then you coming in as a voice of clarity, that's, hey, here's the questions I have. Here's some of the like people I need to chat with. And here's some of the ways that maybe we can test this fast and we can experiment to get to some real answers when it comes to whatever the project might be, messaging, pricing, competitive intel, what have you.
I love that thoughts and feelings piece because and then Gab, you can probably attest to this, it comes up a lot in messaging, especially when you're having those CEOs like, I feel like we should say this word instead of that word. And you're like, is this what you're paying for? But I don't know. That's not my wheelhouse, guys. I focus on sales enablement. I don't want to get into messaging. So I don't know. You let me, y'all verify.
To me, it's the most, and I know Eric and I talked about that over the last few weeks, but it's the most expensive part of your go-to-market. If it's done badly, like there's 1,000 ways on how your messaging can fail, whether it's stakeholder meddling, whether it's you don't know what data to track, whether it's just, again, a game of messaging by committee of I don't like that word, and there's a lack of understanding of what the influence of the different members should do in a go-to-market motion. Everything can fail so easily. And that's why I think there's more and more PMM consultant coming in, because when you're able to bring that external influence or that external perspective of having worked with a handful of clients, they can't help but at least listen to you. And then it's about like convincing them that things must be done in a specific fashion. Otherwise, like we'll all be back to step zero. The messaging doesn't resonate. The go-to-market gets more expensive, and we're losing opportunities left and right.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were chatting about at the top of the call on just having a third party sounding board. I don't know what it is, because I hired Megan Pratt when I was at Metadata, and it was like I could say the same thing, the exact same thing she was saying to our leadership, and it was like, yeah, whatever. A third party comes in, and all of a sudden it's, wait, you have this extra level of like validation that maybe an internal person doesn't have, and that's a lot of times a company culture thing. But yeah, being able to reset on, not all, to your point, not all voices in the go-to-market are created equal. Not everybody should weigh in at the same time. And you just keep extending these timelines, and then everything starts to sound like, I don't know, word soup. And yeah, I think that's where an external third party is so helpful.
I love how you mentioned Megan Pratt, because she mentioned something last season, or 2 seasons ago, about when she's being brought on to projects, she explicitly doesn't mention product marketing in her first conversations. That like people are bringing you in with the explicit frame of reference of, we need a first product marketer. I'm curious to hear more about your approach. Is it because people already know what a product marketer is when they are bringing you in, or is it you having to educate on this is what a product marketing foundation should look like? Because it seems like two different things, but there might be a common thing.
Yeah, I think I've been really lucky in that a lot of my engagements are, and this is why like building your brand on LinkedIn is so important, and just being out in the community, is people know who I am to some degree. They know what I'm passionate about, what I talk about. I have a really great network of people that advocate for me and bring me into different organizations. But I always talk about, I'm product marketing forward, I guess you could say. I don't want to be in a gray area where somehow we've talked past each other and I'm doing some demand gen work or something that's not in my wheelhouse. So I lead with it. I educate on what product marketing is if they're not aware. But a lot of times, the problem statements I'm getting are very clearly in. And so I don't know if I'm just gotten really lucky or I'm an outlier to some degree, but I try to lead with it because I just don't want confusion on what I do. And I do have a background in demand gen, and I got away from demand gen, never wanting to look back at demand gen. So I think maybe it's also a little bit of self-preservation in that I don't want to do things that trip into demand gen land.
It's becoming harder and harder as well. Like marketing is evolving, it's becoming tough, and especially demand gen, like with all the touch point, all the competition, all of the lack of attention and noise that's out there. Like even if you're a talented demand gen person, the standard and the benchmark of being good at it is definitely more difficult. And at the end, like it's basically a game of, even if you're very good at managing a bunch of campaigns and delivering results, if your foundation are rotten or less or weak a little bit, yeah, it will impact everything else you're trying to do.
Yeah. And that's where I think consulting is becoming really interesting. I have a couple of friends in my network that are demand gen folks, and we've been chatting about like, how do you like advocate for which, like, chicken or the egg between demand gen and product marketing, who needs to come first in engagement, or where does that handoff need to be? Because as I mentioned, teams are still super small. So you get all this great product marketing work done, and it's, what do we do with this? Because we don't have somebody that's going to activate it in some sort of way. But yeah, demand gen is getting harder and harder. And I was like a B- demand gen person back in the day. Like I had super anxiety about hitting send in Marketo, so it was just not a fit for me.
I love how you were touching on demand gen because I remember back in the day when I was interviewing for PMM roles, there was one leader. The leader never connected with me on LinkedIn after this interview because they were like, I need direct demand gen experience. And I educated this person and being like, I hope you know product marketing is not demand gen. And I don't know, I'm gonna get on this little soapbox really quick, Alex. I'm gonna hop on for about 15 seconds. Hop out.
Go for it.
But my beef with demand gen is it's only like The Bachelor, the series that having a volume of days and leads doesn't mean a good performing business when 85% of these quote unquote eligible individuals are complete duds. They're like, we'd be a lot shorter if you found some quality individuals. But I think it's just this idea of demand gen. Hey, I have 1,000 leads in a pipeline, and as a former sites that are on a clear ICP versus having 1,000, where it's just like I hop on the call and they're like, I don't even know why I'm on this call. I'm like, I don't know either.
Yeah.
But that's I'm gonna hop back off this soapbox because I just had to get that off.
No, I'm working with a client in the AI space, and like the road ahead for MarTech AI and then like virtual AI, like doing a lot of the top of the funnel review of websites and content, it's just going to get so murky and gray and weird. And I don't know, maybe I'm ignorant to how they'll adapt, but it just, I don't know. It seems like an uphill battle when a lot of the problems I think demand gen experiences are because they do not have a good product marketing foundation. Yeah, I don't know. Demand gen folks, sound off if you're listening to this, but
they're likely not.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
So
if you are listening, hop off.
No, you guys
love
are
our
listening. They're too busy chasing leads to be listening to this podcast.
All right, fellas. You got any big questions before I want to see if Alex got any more plugs that she has coming up?
Gosh, I have one big question for you, Alex. This is the final big question, and you will not hear from me until after the show. You've mentioned the 4 Ps quite a few times in this conversation. We've had previous guests say, well, product marketers because, the 4 Ps. I'm not imitating anyone from the show from previous episodes. That's not, but this is how I hear it. But I'm curious from your standpoint, like, how has the 4Ps maybe changed from your POV of like working outside looking in, or is the 4Ps are the 4Ps still relevant in how we're looking at like product marketing today, or does it require a shift on how? Like, I'm curious, how are you looking at it? Because this is a common refrain we have had previous guests that like, hey, yes, we do the 4Ps, we're marketers, but it sounds like there's a different POV of how you are looking at it that I might be missing. I'm just curious to get more on that.
It's I think the foundations of marketing and like your 4Ps, your general like motions around how marketing helps organizations, how it supports the business bottom line are all important. But I've been thinking about this since I spoke at my alma mater, South Carolina, in October. And I spoke at their CMO summit, which was like for marketers and marketing students, MBA students with a marketing bent. And they're obviously learning like all of the traditional marketing stuff. And yet their professors are telling them, you need to go into sales in order to get into marketing. Like you're not even getting into marketing. Right? So I think from that perspective, how we're talking about marketing and how product marketing in general needs to be talked about is it is a business imperative. It's not a function. It's 4Ps related, but there's so much more that marketers need to think about that are beyond the general learnings of marketing in order to stay relevant in the function in product marketing, which I don't think really is a marketing function. I think it's a little bit above that now. So I see it as more like marketers, in order to be good, yes, know what's in your marketing toolkit, but also you have to get curious around the business metrics. Think like a CEO, be the mini CEO. That's how you're going to get a seat at the table. You're going to run better campaigns. You're going to do better positioning. You're going to do more impactful stuff if you think that way than thinking like a marketer, because now they're like not even telling marketers to go into marketing. They're telling them to go into the sales, work your way up into marketing, and fingers crossed you'll get there, which is crazy to me. So I don't know. I've been thinking about that for a while. I don't know if it totally answers your question, but when I hear the 4Ps, I immediately am just like, they're teaching this in school, and yet they're telling people to go into sales.
It resonates because I was in sales for 5 years before going into product marketing. Hey, it validates what my actual career. Yes,
like it's true. Like when I graduated, again, a few of us went into marketing directly, and people were like, "Whoa, how the hell did you land in that?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was like just that idea of Cal Coleman said it on the season that ultimately I think when you have a sales background in product marketing, you're able to get a lot further, especially when you're responsible for your pipeline. Anyway, we're seeing Zach crushing it, so it must be true. But all of that is basically, if you just follow that path, but you start loving it and you realize that you don't necessarily want to go into product marketing or marketing, it's fine. But I think, again, the 4Ps, it's a well-known notion, but it's not necessarily the key of getting to that path of having your dream job either in product marketing or in marketing. You need to understand what's your destination and what key skills you need to basically get there as well.
Oh yeah, maintaining your line of sight is so important. Otherwise you're like 10 years down the road and you're like, what the hell happened? Who am I? Yeah, 100%.
You sound like you introduced an identity crisis for a mid-career professional.
No, I was always like, plan A is not going to work. I got my plan B. I got my plan C. I was a hustler, and now I get to be a consultant and kind of have a vintage glass business and play the banjo. It's good. Where I go next, I got to figure that out. But right now, it's good.
I love it. You're gonna have a lot of listeners questioning the 4Ps and their marketing persona at the end of this conversation. I hope you know that.
They can hop into my DMs for some more nuanced takes.
With that in mind, the Eric question. Eric, I think you have a question about like how else we can stay plugged in with Alex. Is there anything else I'm missing on that piece?
No, hell yeah. We want to know how to stay plugged up with Alex.
That's
really?
Plugged in.
I can drive down I can take a quick 90-minute drive down to DC if I have to, but the rest of you, we don't know. How can we get plugged in with Alex?
I'm chronically on LinkedIn, so you can always reach me there. I am putting together a couple things for the spring/summer around like just learnings and maybe templates that I feel would be helpful based on my time as a consultant. And I'm going to be in New York City for the PMA event next month. If you're there, if you're not, come to DC.
Alex, this has been an electrifying conversation. I know that after this call, I'm going to bust out the Roomba and dustpan because there's just been a lot of shattered debris on my floor after this call. But for everyone who has jammed with us, you guys got the inside view of Alex's PMM consulting gig. We've heard more about like how to structure those conversations. So, hey, like, how do you command that influence? Because like having a hypothesis, knowing you are the mini CEO, you're not the 4P marketer, you the mini CEO of the business. Alex, there's so much you shared with us, but again, thank you so much for sharing this time with us.
Yeah.
And with that, guys, this is another amazing episode, earth-shattering, groundbreaking episode of
Game changer.
Zach, I'm getting sick of your buzzwords. I'm getting sick of it.
This episode was a pivot.
It's new to me.
I've heard like half a dozen buzzwords out of you. Now you're just dumping more on.
Well, I hope you have
synergy.
Give me one more. Give me one more to end it. Juiciest buzzword you can think of.
Well, I hope you have your Pepto-Bismol at your side because this is another AI-powered episode of We're signing off.
Oh my God.
I'm hurt.
Dagger. The dagger to end the episode. Until next time, everybody.
Thank you.
I might not make it back.
Thank you for listening to We're Not Marketers. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, review our podcast, and share this episode with other PMMs. Thanks again, and see you soon.